this time, if there's anyone else who would like to come and share, we want to open up this time to you.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for being here. Just being here is an act of love, and my mom was known for that. Um, I've been thinking a lot the last couple of nights. Terry and I have been sharing the same sleep schedule. Sleep an hour and skip two. And so when those couple of hours in between right there, we're kind of thinking about our life with her, thinking about what she meant to us right there. But it starts out with her origins, and it starts out with her faith and what she really meant to us and what she represented to us. And so at first, it popped in my head that we might say something like, God asked, who should I send? And he sent Lucille to be my mom and my brother's mother. First, she was a daughter to Haley in that little town of Kinsman. And she was a sister to Shirley. So close to Shirley. Matter of fact, somebody commented today about how she looks a lot like Shirley. And when she's laid to rest later today, they'll be laid to rest very close to Shirley and her dear brother-in-law, Carl, who is there. So that's just part of that family. And so then she was a sister, and then she was a friend. And the first story that struck me was that she learned how to deal with folks that may have had some different challenges, because one of her friends was this girl named Elsie Carmichael from Kinsman. Elsie was a beautiful lady, should have been a movie star. If in today's world, she would have definitely been on social media at a minimum. She was just absolutely beautiful, but she had crippling arthritis. One of the first people I've ever known as a young adult that was in a wheelchair. And my mom used to take me around because she always wanted to take Elsie to a nice show or to a nice dinner. And it was my job to get her in and out of the car, as we know what that means like today, Terry, so she had a little practice. That's the kind of friendship she was. Another friend I remember was a friend named Lucille Austin. Lucille lived just across the street from the North Park Baptist Church, and several people today went to church with Lucille, came through our receiving line today and gave us their condolences. But Lucille was a beautiful lady, had a speech impediment, had some challenges socially like that, but my Lucille just was with her so many years, and that part of those years, she actually had to drive her husband to Cleveland for cancer treatments because they didn't have a car. And he was a guy who took care of some maintenance for the cemeteries in Warren. And so that's the kind of folks that she found that needed her time and her attention and her love. So fast forward, and we see in the paper that Miss Lucille passed away. And that was the morning I had to take Mom for a doctor's appointment. She was not happy. So I took her to the doctor's appointment and said, I promise you I'm going to get you over there to the calling hours in this funeral home in Warren. And so we got there just barely in time as the calling hours were coming to a close. And she had to sit in the back of the chapel, okay, for one of her dear friends that she'd known for years, couldn't say goodbye to her, while the pastor said some very nice things about her. Well, then he says something that was just a miracle, because he said, anybody who hasn't had a chance to say goodbye to Lucille, starting with the rear of the church, please come forward and you can say your goodbyes. So she got up. She was the first one going down the aisle. She got 2 rows into it. A whole row of young ladies now, young mothers now, said, Miss Lucille. That was my Sunday school teacher. That was my Bible school teacher. So she gets this whole row of her. She's waving at him like a rock star. I couldn't believe it. So she kept going, and she kept going. And then she'd get down to the front of the church. Now, trust me, I've been to a few funerals. She started taking me to funerals when I was just a kid. So I understand how the process works. But on the way out of that funeral home, she stopped at that casket and held that dear friend's hand and gave her a kiss goodbye. And I kind of knew what friendship was, because she modeled that for us our entire life. So all that took place. She was a mother. After being a mother, she became an aunt. And for a long while, she got known as Aunt Lucille. So that was a pretty cool time of my life, because they were contemporaries of mine. They were cousins. and we'd often have reunions or things of that nature, but they'd also bring friends. Next thing you know, their friends were calling her Aunt Lucille. So she was Aunt Lucille for a long while. And then all of a sudden, a couple kids showed up named Jennifer and Terry. I don't know. She loved that role because that's the role that we now say goodbye to her in. Okay? That's the grandmother role. She loved that role except for when Jennifer started yelling out on the ski slopes when she was a young, eligible lady. Okay? Grandma! She was like, shh. Shh. But we were sitting around, and as those of you that know me know that I like to think out of the box sometimes. And long story short, I think about life sometimes as something that's a story to be told. And I thought, man, we're just in a different chapter of this book, you and me, Terry. We've got to figure out how to ease Grandma through this transition, keep her as comfortable as we can, and get her job done. And what I noticed, everybody that came in there to help us with that, I noticed that they were crying as they were helping any way they could. And I noticed every once in a while they needed some extra hugs. And it dawned on me the chapter that we're currently in here, Terry, and that was she was everybody's grandma. Not just yours. She was everybody's grandma. So, that being said, that's what she represented in so many ways. I had lunch with my daughter to get ready for her school year, Little Italy, this week. And I kind of tricked her into giving me some things to talk about today. I said, Grandma, what a life. What do you find so special about that life? Man, right away, first thing she said was her commitment to Terry. Her commitment to Terry was the first thing out of her mouth. And if somebody didn't say that, with her 92 years on the planet, 31 of them with a roommate named Terry, that would be wrong. If they said and mentioned that, okay, you would think, wow, that's a beautiful thing for that grandmother to do. She was 61 when she signed up there, a couple years younger than me. I don't feel like signing up for that today. She did. And that whole journey took a running for it right there. But you and I have been planning for this for a while here. And that being said, as we've been planning for this for a while, it really got a little bit out of hand. And we were a little worried about her physical safety and our ability to care for her. We just didn't know if we could pull that off. And I'm in Seattle, and Terry calls me, and he says, Uncle Greg, don't be getting crazy about what you're thinking. I go, Terry, we may have to put her someplace. We may have to put her someplace where she could actually be cared for and protected so she's not running out to Route 46, and also she gets everything she needs, kind of thing. And you said, no problem, Uncle Greg, it's your mom. I'll respect anything you say because I respect you, and thank you for that respect. And you said, when you get back home, let's talk about it. And I remember you pulled me right outside that side door, which we're going to be at today. You pulled me right outside and you said, Uncle Greg, totally understand your concerns right here. I said, totally understand your concerns. But you remember when Grandma took me in? Saved my life. If you decide that it's best for her to go to an institution, that's not a problem. The big problem would be, do you think they'd have two rooms side by side because she ain't going by herself? If that doesn't sum it up, I don't know what does. I don't know what does. The other day, I'm looking for anything that I can tell my nephew that could cheer him up because he and I both need cheered up. Now, my little bike riding class that I do sometimes, okay, as a cool down song, they played the Beatles song, Let It Be. Now, I'm younger than the guys that listened to the Beatles in the 60s. I wasn't that old. Okay, we used to get the free 45s. Me and cousin Brad would go to the Trumbull County Fair, and they'd give us 45 discs to play, of the pop songs like they did, but none of the really late stuff that they did. Now, so I know a little bit about that because I've been interested in that for a while, and found out that they're making this last album that they make together in 1969. And on that album is the song Let It Be. Now, about the time I became a Beatles fan, I'm in college, and Let It Be is the thing that you played at the very end of your college party to get people to go home. Because it's this kind of a hippy-dippy song that's kind of like everybody, oh, okay, just let it be, everybody relax, let's get through this thing, okay? And I thought for a while it was quite a religious song, because my goodness, he's asking a lot out of Mother Mary. And as it turns out, a couple of things were happening. Number one, the Beatles were breaking up, and that was really hard on those young men. Number two, one of the younger guys in that group was a guy named Paul McCartney, who was 29 years old. And Mother Mary, by the way, wasn't Jesus' mother. It was his mother, who recently passed away. And he was just saying, you taught me a lot. Keep coming with that wisdom. Keep telling me when I need to rest and when I need to go forward. He and I found a little comfort in that. I hope you do too. And we'll look forward to celebrating Lucille's life today because it's a life to be celebrated. Thank you, Pastor.
Well said.
All right, Jennifer says she's not speaking, so I'm going to give this a go. I'll do my best. I imagine that everyone will talk about the life of service that Grandma Lucille lived, and that life was incredibly admirable. But I want to tell you about the real grandma, the grandma that wasn't afraid to put us in our place. I remember a time when Jennifer, Terry, and I were young and decided to tie a sled behind the tractor. We had a blast riding around, even though there wasn't any snow. Eventually, Grandma called us into the house and told us to take a nap. So naturally, we decided to wait until she fell back asleep and then snuck back outside. And we did, and boy, was she upset. So Jennifer and I immediately gave in and went back into the house. But Terry, in true fashion, stayed outside and decided to run from her. Jennifer and I intently watched out from the window, watching Grandma chase Terry around, eventually grabbing a broom to try to get him out of the tree fort. Terry ran to the barn and climbed onto the roof after that. She followed him with that same broom in hand, but then she spotted a snake and came running back to the house. So eventually Terry came back in, and Grandma was still pretty upset with all of us, so she took us to our dad's house for a good old-fashioned spanking. That was Grandma, and somehow after all that, it was all forgotten. So those are the stories I love because they remind me that Grandma wasn't just someone we admired. She was someone we knew. We knew her really well. She was so funny and stubborn and independent and completely unapologetic about who she was. Grandma was always late. God, she was always late. So late that we had to tell her that our party started at least a half hour earlier than they actually did. And even then, she still managed to arrive on her own schedule. She wore dresses and high heels every day, well into her late 60s, maybe 70s. My aunts had to work hard to convince her to wear tennis shoes because to Grandma, they were simply too casual. Her laugh was so loud and contagious. That picture, I think, really shows that when she started laughing, everyone around her wanted to laugh too. And whenever she had an opinion, you had to agree with her. She would keep talking and explaining and making her case until you finally saw things her way, or at least you agreed to pretend you did because you couldn't take any more convincing. But most of all, when I think of Grandma, I think of her showing up. I think of her sitting in the stands at my gymnastics meets and baseball games. And I think of my friends who know her because she had probably given them a ride somewhere, or because we had stopped at her house and ate all of her food. She even took the train from Pittsburgh to Chicago when she was in her 80s, just so she could comfort me and hold my son. What Grandma Lucille taught me, more than anything else, was the importance of simply showing up. She was always late, but she always showed up. As many of you know, Grandma suffered from dementia for several years. I remember driving into town and to attend her sister's funeral, sitting right here actually, and I sat with Grandma throughout the night for the service. The next with you. We remember the way you showed up even when you were late. And even when you could no longer remember all of those moments yourself, they were still ours. And they still are. So, Grandma, we remember. And we will remember for you.
You'll all be relieved to know that I'm not as eloquent as my brother Greg, so this will be brief. Okay. But one thing I wanted to touch upon, Mom, that made all the difference in my life. Before she became ill and was diagnosed with dementia, you could find her reading her Bible and praying to God every day. And that must have rubbed off on me because she thought a lot of Billy Graham and she was involved in many of his crusades. And as Greg had spoken the last couple of days, she never preached to anybody. She just lived it. And the biggest gift my mom ever gave to me was to teach me to love God and his son, Jesus Christ. And I'll be eternally grateful for that. That's
Is there anyone else?
Hello, my name is Emily, and I got a chance to know Lucille through my dad, working for her grandson, Terry. I'm just going to make this quick because I'm pretty sad. But she taught me how to play the piano, and I'll never forget that. And she was just the sweetest, kindest human being in human existence. Um, and when she got diagnosed with dementia, I actually sang for her before she got really bad, and it relaxed her so much. And thanks to that gift that I gave Lucille, I wouldn't be here standing in front of you guys and I go to places and sing thanks to Lucille. So thank you so much.
Hi, I am Lori Ann. I'm one of the caregivers for Lucille, amongst, I'm sure, a zillion of you in this room, along with the ones who are currently taking care of her. Um, I've only been with her for about a year and a half, but I fell in love with her after the very first day that I met her. Um, she had already been progressive in her disease. But I've been familiar with dealing with people with the disease for my own family. And I just found what worked for her and the things that she loved, knowing that she taught ballet at one point, and I would put music on for her, and we would just sit and dance or just laugh. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to have been able to take care of her, which I'm sure all of us who have taken care of her feel that way. She was such a funny lady from what I've known of her. And as I told Greg the other day, you know, he said, yeah, she always remembered Terry. But I said, don't worry, she was scolding you plenty of days sitting in that living room, bending down, saying, Greg, Greg, Greg. So I'm sure that, she had all of you in her heart because I seen how much she loved everybody that came when they were there to see her. And the wonderful mother that you all got to have, I'm so grateful. And the grandmother that you got to have. And as Greg said, she was everybody's grandma. And I am very grateful for all of you trusting me, myself, to have her in my care. And I thank you so much for letting me love her that much. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone who has shared such beautiful tributes. I probably should start with a funny story. I have had the privilege to serve this beautiful family for close to over a little over 2 years. My relationship mainly was with Terry. I think I gained another brother with Terry, and we just hit it off right off. I'm a chaplain with Hospice of the Valley and also a full-time pastor. Upon my first visit there, though, after seeing so many patients and charge it to my mind, not my heart, I went in to see Miss Lucille, and I don't know why I thought she was Catholic, but I go through this whole Catholic ritual. Greg told me she definitely wasn't Catholic. She had her opinion about Catholics. No offense, but she laid there and she didn't say one thing. But when I turned around to walk away, I heard her say under her breath, "Don't come back." Imagine my amazement. I said, "Wow," she spoke. And I never told Terry or anyone about that. I kept coming. And then about a year in, I'm talking to Terry, and I'm like, "So you guys were Catholic. What church did you attend?" "What? We're not Catholic. We're Baptist." It all made sense then. Just want to share a few words with you, and I appreciate the opportunity to serve this beautiful family. But I think it's very, very befitting. And before I get into this, I do want to acknowledge, but due to the lateness of the time, I want to expedite this. But I do want to acknowledge that we have received beautiful words and resolutions from Mount Calvary Pentecostal Church of Youngstown under the divine leadership of Bishop C. Sean Tyson. And we also have resolutions here from the church I pastor at New Beginnings Outreach Ministries, also in Youngstown, Ohio. And we will make sure the family gets these for your records. I think it's very befitting, as everyone has talked about Lucille being a musician. And how many know that every life has a sound? There's something fascinating about a piano. A piano contains both white and black keys. You cannot play every song only using white keys, and you cannot play every song only using black keys. Some songs require the musician to move through both. There are major chords that sound bright and triumphant, but there are minor chords that sound reflective or sorrowful. There are moments when the music rises and moments when it falls. There are moments when the pianist plays loudly, and there are also moments when the beauty is found in playing softly. But a skilled musician understands something important. One difficult note does not ruin the song. Sometimes the note that sounds strange by itself makes perfect sense when you hear it within the entire composition. One great theologian by the name of Howard Thurman once wrote, "There is something in every one of you that waits and listens for the sound of the genuine in yourself." Perhaps just maybe today, as we listen to the sound of Lucille's life, we discover that what made her life beautiful was not that every note was easy. What made it beautiful was that through every changing key, she remained authentically committed to God, not just to God, but family and service through love. Lucille knew something about music. She studied it, she directed choirs, played the piano, the organ. She sang. She worshiped. As the young lady stated, she taught others. But today I would suggest that Lucille did more than just play music. Lucille lived music. Her life contained different movements. There were major chords of joy. There were minor chords of sorrow. There were keys of faith and keys of family, service, sacrifice, and yes, even perseverance. And when you put all of those notes together, you begin to hear the melody of a woman whose life declared, God has been faithful. And today, our theme for Lucille can be defined as the chords and the keys of life. One of the most popular passages in the Bible is found in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 4, verses 1 through 8. Most of us know it. It talks about the different seasons that come in our lives. Solomon is the author, but he does not pretend that life is always easy. He speaks about tears, loneliness, labor, and struggle. He speaks about people working and striving without ever asking what all their work is ultimately for. In 4 and 8, Solomon describes a person who has neither child nor brother, yet continues laboring without asking, for whom do I labor? The question reaches beyond our work. Who are we living for? Greg said so eloquently that one of the greatest chapters in Lucille's life was being there for Terry, but then Terry being there for Lucille. That says something about when love makes room. That's a chord in Lucille's life that deserves to be heard clearly today. Terry was a young man affected by a terrible tragedy, suffered a devastating injury. In a moment, life was different. Future looked different. The ordinary things most of us take for granted suddenly became difficult. And in that moment, Terry needed more than just sympathy. He needed someone who would make room. Lucille made room. She didn't just visit, she took him in. She opened her home, her schedule, and her life. And that's what makes Lucille's story so powerful. Because love is easy to talk about when love costs us nothing. The real test of love comes when loving someone requires us to rearrange our lives. Jesus said in the Gospel of John, chapter 15 and 13, greater love have no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Sometimes laying down your life means rearranging your life for somebody else. Lucille did that for Terry. There was another key in her life. It was faith. Her son talked about how he introduced him to the faith that he holds so dear. Lucille loved God, and her relationship with God through Jesus Christ was not something that appeared later in life. It began in her childhood. And in a world where everyone declares faith, she lived it through love, through compassion, through showing love to anyone, whether you were blood or not. Another key in her life was family. If God was first, family was second, not too far behind. She took care of her family. She showed up, attended activities in school and sporting events, supported her grandchildren, supported, of course, her sons, became the president of Mecca PTA, served on the board of directors of the Warren YMCA. But family, hear this. When all else fails, the love that we show to our family is our ultimate testament of our faith in Jesus Christ. Every event she attended mattered, because love is not always demonstrated through the dramatic moments. Sometimes love looks like I'll take you, I'll teach you, I'll cook for you, wait for you, I'll be there, I'll come watch, I'll help you. Terry, I'll stay with you. Not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love. Third key is service. The author of Ecclesiastes said, "For whom do I labor?" Lucille's answer was, "I labor for others." Dr. Martin Luther King once said, "Everybody can be great because everybody can serve." What a profound measurement of human life. The question is not simply how much did we acquire? The question is how much did we give? Lucille gave a lot. That's why we started late, because so many wanted to give back to her. Another key was sacrificial love. She sacrificed for her family. She didn't just talk about it, but she lived it. She was a full-time caregiver to Terry, but also to her caregivers who were there to care for her. Her smile, even before dementia entered into her life. That's covenant love. I want us to understand this in closing. The minor chords still belong in the song. Every long life eventually encounters minor chords. Lucille experienced loss. She buried people she loved. Her sister. She watched the circumstances change. She experienced aging and this terrible disease of dementia. But C.S. Lewis once wrote, "The pain I feel now is the happiness I had before." But that's the deal. In other words, grief hurts precisely because love mattered. And grief is often the price we pay for having loved. If you don't hear anything else today, hear this. The music does not end at death. Sure, Lucille could no longer play the keys, but the music is still playing. It's playing through you. Every song is a reflection of the life that you live. Jesus, in the scriptures, was called upon after Lazarus had died. Sisters came and said, "If you had been here, my brother would not have died." Jesus said, "I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, shall yet live." Jesus did not say, "I know about the resurrection." He said, "I am the resurrection." And because Christ lived in Lucille, Lucille lives in Christ. The song continues. And because Greg said it first, I might as well reverence an old song from the same time period. And the beat goes on through each and every one of us. Vibrations of sound, through your laughter, through your memories, through caring for others. Lucille would be proud. If she could look down even now and see what you all have become, I imagine a big smile would be upon her face. But let's keep playing the music by remembering the life that she lived. One more time, would you please indulge me by clapping your hands for the life of Miss Lucille. Let us pray. Father, we thank you. We thank you for this time of celebration and remembrance. This is not a sad occasion because it's a homegoing. We cannot lose something when we know where it is. We know where Lucille is. Dementia has lost. Her memory is back. her smile has returned and her body is healed. She awaits each and every one of us. She lived, and she lived to the fullest. Each and every one of us is a testament to the life she lived. Thank you for the gift. Strengthen this family. Strengthen her friends and loved ones. And remind them that this is not goodbye, but this is Lucille. We'll see you soon. In Jesus' name, amen. At this time, on behalf of the family, I would like to give a very special thank you to Stanton Borowski Funeral Home for their beautiful service to this family and to the community. At this time, they will take the service from here. God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Pastor Carson. Um, there really isn't much I can say that hasn't been very beautifully said by this man. But what I will say is one of the things he spoke about was grandmothers. And I find this very fitting because I ended up saying this at my own grandmother's service. A grandmother is somebody who takes those and loves unconditionally. It is a job also of a grandmother to take those who she loves, younger and children, and show them that the world isn't a scary place and make it less of a scary place. And that's something I think Lucille did unapologetically and just based off principle, almost like it was a mission sent to her by God himself. I also would like to reiterate the resolution from Calvary Church in Youngstown, which very rarely they give resolutions to to people not in their congregation. So the fact that they did so Lucy really had something with her that touched so many people. And for that, I believe, and I believe all you believe, she was an ambassador to humanity. From here, this does conclude services at the funeral home. We'll be processing to Hillside Cemetery. We'll be dismissing, starting with those in the opposite chapel at the very back to come and give Lucille her last respects before we go to the cemetery. God bless you all. After that, if those going to the cemetery will go quickly to their cars, we'll begin the procession. Thank you.